Hi, my name is Cautex, and welcome to my Shadowlands Arms Warrior guide. Now, unlike most of the guides that I've seen on YouTube, I'm not about to copy all of the content from Archimitros?
Archimitros.
Yeah, that. He's the guy who writes the arms guides for both Wowhead and Icy Veins. If you're simply looking for the basics of how to play arms this expansion, I would honestly say just go read his guides on Wowhead or Icy Veins or wherever else he has them posted. However, there are a number of details about playing arms that are omitted or simply glossed over in those aforementioned guides that I think warrant some attention, and this guide will be focusing on some of the more technical aspects and nuances that I believe matter when you wish to excel at playing arms. That said, it would be remiss of me not to overview some of the normal things like spec, covenants, stat weights, and etc. So let's go through that now. Starting with covenants, making the best meaningful choice TM mostly depends on your primary gameplay focus. If you're mostly focused on raiding in Mythic Plus, Venthyr is your best choice because of how strong Condemn is. Kyrian is the best if you're mostly focused on PvP, though it is still quite good in Mythic Plus and also in pretty much any AoE scenario. Night Fae is great if you like to zoom around and don't really care what anybody thinks. And Necrolord is great if you really enjoy making other people look better at great personal cost while getting no credit for it. If you're going Venthyr, in most cases, the best option is to use Nadja as your Soulbind and then take the path of getting Agent of Chaos and then Dauntless Duelist. And then in your Potency Conduit, you should use Ashen Juggernaut to give your Condemn a stacking crit buff. However, in scenarios where you're going to be spending an extended period of time not damaging your initial target, and also in fights that involve at least 4 target AoE for the majority of the encounter, gaining a second Potency Conduit by going for familiar predicaments will be more beneficial than getting Dauntless Duelist. In these cases, the best Potency Conduits for you to get are either going to be Mortal Combo for the chance to proc an extra Mortal Strike in the single target scenario, or Harrowing Punishment for the AoE scenario. If you're going Kyrian, then the best option is to use Pelagos and go the route of getting Focusing Mantra. In your Potency Conduits, you should be using Ashen Juggernaut and Mortal Combo. If you go Night Fae, the best option is to use Naya and go the route of getting Run Without Tiring and Naya's tools, Burrs. In your Potency Conduit, you should use Ashen Juggernaut. If you're going to be doing an encounter where you will be doing lots of interrupting, then it's slightly better to get Naya's tools, Poisons, rather than Burrs, which would also give you an additional Potency Conduit. In that Potency Conduit, you would want to use Mortal Combo. For your talents, in the first row you should get either Sudden Death or Skullsplitter. I'll talk about this choice in a bit. If you're Venthyr, then you should get Massacre, otherwise you should get Fervor of Battle. Warbreaker is the safest all-round option, though Cleave is a viable option in sustained high-target AoE situations. Next, you should grab Avatar and Ravager to maximize the effectiveness of Arms' best legendary option. However, in sustained AoE encounters, Dreadnought is likely to be better than Ravager. If all you look at is Sims, then the choice between Sudden Death and Skullsplitter is obviously won out by Skullsplitter. However, having played with both talents extensively, Skullsplitter is a bit of a simulation trap, meaning that it sims better than it plays. How much value you get out of either talent depends on how often you use it. For Skullsplitter, this effectively means how often is your rage low enough that you need to use a 20 rage boost in order to ensure that you can use your next couple GCDs. For Sudden Death, this effectively means how lucky you get with procs. Another way of looking at this is that Skullsplitter prevents you from losing damage because it basically does the same damage as a slam, whereas Sudden Death gambles at a chance for more damage, because Execute is our highest damage ability. As you're gearing up, Skullsplitter is probably the safer option initially as it provides more consistent DPS. Though once you have enough haste and crit, you'll find yourself going long periods of time without using Skullsplitter. Once this happens, it's probably best to switch to Sudden Death. It's worth mentioning that, when using the Ravager ability, despite having a targeting circle, most of the time you're going to want to place your Ravager right on top of wherever you're standing. And because of this, I highly recommend creating a macro to automatically place it right on top of you, because this will save you having to deal with using that targeting circle. You can also make it so that if you're holding a modifier key like Shift, Alt, or Control, when you hit the macro, it'll give you the targeting circle back. You can find the macro that I personally use and that you can see on the screen in the video description if you want to use it. After weapon damage, Strength is our best friend. For secondary stats, Crit is generally the best, followed by Mastery and Haste, with Versatility being the worst, though not by much. It's worth mentioning, though, that taking Skullsplitter greatly increases the value of Haste, as its cooldown is reduced by Haste. At this point in the expansion, the best legendary power for arms is the Signet of Tormented Kings. This makes it so that using Avatar, Recklessness, or Bladestorm/Ravager grants you one of the other two abilities alongside it at a shorter duration selected randomly. You get this legendary power off the Stone Legion generals in Castle Nathria, and this power can only be put on bracers or rings. I personally went with putting it on a ring because it's a safer choice due to having 2 ring slots, and also I have terrible luck with getting rings. Once you get this legendary, it'll change the way that you play a little bit. While traditionally it's best to stack as many cooldowns together as possible, when using the Signet of Tormented Kings, it's generally safest to stagger them a little bit. The reasoning for doing so is this: Avatar grants rage, Ravager grants rage, and Recklessness increases rage generation. When these effects get combined together, it's very easy to overcap your rage, which means that you don't get to convert that excess rage into damage. Now, if you're Venthyr, depending on the procs that you get, it's sometimes possible to stay ahead of your rage generation while spamming Condemn, though it depends on the specific timings of your melee swings and your RNG for getting auto-attack crits and things like that. I personally find it best to delay using Ravager until after whatever Tormented King's bonus granted by Avatar is over. In addition to the potential for getting overcapped on rage, if you decide to use Ravager and Avatar at the same time, there's an issue with how getting a bonus Avatar buff from the Signet of Tormented Kings interacts with casting Avatar. Now, anyone who played with Vision of Perfection during BFA is likely familiar with this issue because it's the exact same problem. And that issue is this: the way that Signet of Tormented Kings is coded, when it gives you either Recklessness or Avatar, it basically says add 6 or 8 seconds to Recklessness or Avatar respectively, and if that buff isn't present, then it creates that buff. Now, when you cast Avatar, it basically says, create an instance of the Avatar buff with 20 seconds on it. Now, that difference is important, because if you cast Avatar, then use Ravager right after, and that Ravager then procs a bonus Avatar, you'll get a 28-second Avatar. However, if you cast Ravager, which procs the bonus Avatar, and then you cast Avatar after that, you'll only get 20 seconds on that Avatar. This issue only occurs for Avatar when using Avatar and Ravager at basically the same time. If both proc a Recklessness, then those durations add together and there's no problem. If Avatar procs Ravager, that's fine too, because it creates a second instance of Ravager right on top of you. And if you're not talented into Ravager, and Avatar procs Bladestorm, you can't cast Bladestorm while Bladestorming, so there's no issue with that either. Long story short, you should stagger your cooldown usage to lower the chance that you'll get rage capped, but if you do want to stack all your cooldowns together, then use Avatar before you cast Ravager. If you're not using Fervor of Battle, when it becomes viable to use Whirlwind over a Sweeping Strike Slam depends on the number of targets present. Whirlwind will do more damage than a Sweeping Strike Slam when it hits 4 or more targets. However, because Whirlwind costs more rage than Slam, its damage per rage only becomes better when it hits 5 targets. In other words, if there are 3 or fewer targets, don't bother using Whirlwind at all. If there are 4 targets, then use it when you know that you won't be rage-starved by using Whirlwind, and when there are 5 targets, you should replace Slam entirely with Whirlwind. If you're rage-starved and don't have a melee swing happening soon, it's actually a DPS increase to run out of melee range, then use Charge for the 20 rage it generates. This trick becomes even more valuable when you take Sudden Death, as many of the times that you would normally use Skullsplitter are now times when you can Charge Weave. For style points, you can also intervene a friendly player and then charge back in rather than running, though depending on the distance away the player is, this might actually be a little bit slower. Thank you for watching this guide. As new theory crafting occurs for how best to play an Arms Warrior this expansion, and also as patches and hotfixes change the balancing for Arms Warriors, I'm going to be making update videos to make sure that there's all the complete and current information available. So feel free to subscribe to my channel if you're interested in seeing that future content. Regardless of that though, I have a request to make of you that I make on every single video, which is tell me why I'm wrong in the comments. Tell me why the information that I'm presenting is stupid, it doesn't work, it's not actually that way. Tell me what is the right way.